Hi everybody, thank you for joining this webinar on mentoring. We will be starting in a couple of minutes. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join. Hi everybody that's just joined. Thank you for joining this webinar on mentoring. We're just going to wait another 30 seconds or so for the rest of our colleagues to join. Hello, so good afternoon. Thank you for joining this webinar on mentoring. We're really pleased that you've dialed into this one, this lunchtime. This will be a brief webinar and I've got my colleagues Kat Cleaver, who works at CMI, and Dean Westwood, who's one of our fellows and a chartered manager, who works at our strategic partner Maximus Training. So both of them will be talking through mentoring with you very shortly. Before we start, I would like to mention on Management Direct, we did ask our big question. So our recent big question asked our members whether they have a mentoring culture. So we've got the responses of that. We had 741 replies, 423 said no, 318 said yes. So the majority said that no, their organisation doesn't have a mentoring culture. So I'm hoping that through this webinar we can start to develop that and start to change it. So I think that's something really interesting in terms of the feedback that we've got. I also want to say thank you very much for the questions that you've sent through. We've tried to incorporate some of the answers to those questions within this webinar, and we do have a Q&A session at the end. So time dependent, we'll try and get through as many as we can. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my colleagues, Dean Westwood and Kat Cleaver, to talk you through mentoring.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. And as already mentioned, the purpose of today's session is to help anyone that might be thinking about looking for a mentor. And obviously, because of the response that we've had, we've chosen to take, to specifically think today about the role of the mentee. And we are then looking at further webinars around the role of a mentor and potentially coaching. So today is that role of a mentee. What we want to also do there is think about what actually is meant by mentoring, some useful hints and tips for if you are looking at trying to find a mentor. And then, as I said, towards the end of the session, we'll start to pick up some of those questions that haven't been captured. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Dean, who is going to explain in more detail what actually is meant by mentoring and what you need to do as a mentee.
Thank you, Kat. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So really, when we look at and talk about what is mentoring, unlike a normal management relationship, mentoring relationships tend to be on a voluntary basis of both sides. And although it is considered that a line manager can be a mentor to the people that they manage, the norm that we actually find is a great idea to form a brand new relationship that will give different perspectives and aid in the growth and development. So unlike a coaching relationship, mentoring relationships, are more usually unpaid. Now, the idea behind the mentoring relationships is a essentially charitable one, that the experienced individual, i.e. the mentor, wishes to pass on some of what they've learned to someone else who will benefit from their experience. And some organisations run formal mentoring programs that match their learners' needs. However, less formal mentoring relationships really do work very, very well. Now, British mentoring programs tend to have 4 key elements. They are improving their performance, career development, counselling, and the sharing of knowledge. And in other countries, because I've got a couple in America, and especially the US, there's also an element of the mentor acting as a sponsor, but we don't normally see that kind of sponsorship over here into the UK on the mentorship program. So mentoring relationships, especially formal ones, can be organised through mentoring programs, as I said, and are often entered into with a defined time limit or a defined goal, such as having a framework in a place that can be easier for both parties to agree what they want to get from it, rather than just being an over-ended commitment. So, for example, a learner may agree to work with a mentor for a year or until they actually achieve something that they desire, maybe a promotion or enter a project or whatever it may be. And after they reach the time limit to achieve the goal, terms can then be renegotiated. The mentor and learner may decide to continue to work together, especially if the relationship has been productive and helpful to both sides. And that's something then that kind of brings into the next part, really. It's about, for me, there are 2 different types of mentors. You've got your passive mentors and your active mentors. Now, most mentors you'll have in your life, you won't even realise that they are a mentor. And these are what we call passive mentors. Now, they're the ones that you can refer to. It might be an author of an article that you read on LinkedIn that you really liked, and if you see it again, you'll go in and read it because you're investing and you believe in what that person, or you take on board the message that's been given. Or it could be authors of books you love, or maybe even a keynote speaker that you see on a webinar or a conference. And these people are out there and they're influencing you in ways that you may not even realise on a day-to-day basis. And then there are what we call your active mentors. Now, these are people who come into your life and they really interact with you directly. That can be once a year, it could be once a day, once a month, fortnight, it doesn't really matter. But when you get that time with them, it's about you listening to what they have to say, whether or not you've asked questions of them. If you have specific questions you want someone to answer for you, rather than just taking the advice and experience of the mentor, you probably want to look at consultancy for that. Mentors are only really able to give you what they have available to them in their experience. And it's important to remember that they don't always have the answers that you're looking for. What a mentor will give you is their take on a situation and experience that they've gained. So it's important to know that it is a 2-way relationship, and it's not just about taking advice and guidance. The mentee can give so much back in the relationship by having discussions and debate and introducing new thinking that might not have been seen out there before. So the final part of this one slide here is just want to basically very quickly touch on the difference between sponsorship and coaching. So one of the biggest differences between these, for me, it's the question of who actually drives the relationship. So whilst I've been researching into mentoring for a project that we're looking to sponsor through Maximus Training, I came across a very, very simple explanation. So a coach provides you guidance for your development, often focuses on your soft skills as well as your technical skills. And you and your coach are responsible for driving the relationship. Now, you can reach out to your coach whenever you need help, but also your coach then may reach out to you. And it allows you to provide development feedback outside the formal performance evaluation process. Now, a mentor is either informal or formal, and they help you navigate your career, providing you with guidance for career choices or decisions or ideas that you may have. You drive the relationship, and that's the key thing. You are the driver there. Your mentor is reactive and responsive to your needs. They also help you to determine possible career paths to help you meet specific career goals. And the final one is a sponsor, which is often bandied around. Now, a sponsor is a senior leader or another person who uses strong influence to help you obtain highly visible assignments, promotions, or jobs. Now, the sponsor drives a relationship. They're an advocate for you in many settings, and often they can be behind closed doors. The advocate for your advancement and the champion for your work, and the potential for other senior leaders to get to know about you and know from that. Kat, could you move on to the next one?
That's excellent, because obviously it really helps people understand what is it that they're looking for. So if I'm interested in becoming a mentee, what do I need to know, Dean?
Well, yeah, the role of a mentee, the role is to listen and to ask questions, and act as a source of information, that you can really get through. So when you're a mentee, mentees really enjoy widespread popularity, obviously in the UK, and obviously it's used in education, business, and for the UK, the National Mentoring Scheme is there, and also.
Dean, sorry,
Yeah.
I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry.
Just so we get the sound sorted out, Kat, do you want to cover some of the areas on this slide, and then we can sort out our technical issues?
No worries at all. So obviously when, and I'll do this from a personal point of view. So when I'm looking at, becoming a mentee, what is it that I need to know? And really, I suppose for me, the key things are listed here is, well, what is it that I want to get? Is it that I need knowledge? Am I looking for guidance? Or is it that I just need somebody to give me some confidence? The other thing I think about when I'm looking at becoming a mentee is, I want that supportive environment that's completely confidential, because the relationship that you tend to have with your mentor is very much that you will probably talk about things that you don't want them bandied around the organization or bandied around your network. And then again, that other one is, it's a real opportunity that somebody that I feel that I could actually build that lasting relationship with, not only that they can boost my career opportunities, but actually that becomes almost that person that even down the line, 2-3 years, I might suddenly think, oh, actually, there's something I need to know about that. And what is actually quite interesting was I was actually talking to somebody yesterday, and they said that they've actually been involved in development of others for a number of years. And they said every now and then they'll have somebody that will come back to them and go, oh, I remember speaking to you about 3 years ago when we did such and such. This has just come up, and I remember you were really, really good or really passionate about that. Are you okay if I just grab some time with you to talk about it? And so you never know where that's going to happen. But for me, I suppose really the biggest thing is I need to know why I want a mentor, because if I don't know why, how can I then make sure that the person I've chosen is the right person for me? Does that make sense for you, Dean? Is your sound working again now?
Oh, is that better?
That's much better.
Yeah, totally agree with everything you just said there, Kat. It's, when you are that mentee and you're in that position, it may be for the first time, it is knowing what it is that you want to get. Because if you don't, it's really just a waste of your time and the potential mentor's time. It has to be a defined thing for me, that you're looking to get from the relationship.
Excellent. Okay, so if we move on, so how then do I decide what I want from my mentor? So I now know what I want from me. It's about what do I want from the person that I'm going to actually open up to and tell them all my secrets. And really, I want them to be able to help me develop potentially those new skills that I'm looking for. I want them to be able to be somebody that they can improve my awareness and self-confidence, and that they give me that opportunity to challenge but also reflect on things. I want to have that exposure to new ways of doing things or thinking about things, and that for me is actually probably quite a key part about what I want from a mentor, is somebody that can get me to think about things in a different way to potentially the way that I would have always done things, because that's then where that growth happens. Also, it's a good opportunity for me to be able to grow a professional network. And again, you never know when that network will come in handy. And obviously within your own organization, but even outside your organization, the opportunity to develop that professional relationship across multiple industries and sectors, because sometimes you can be certainly if you're in an organization for a long while, or it's quite a large organization, you can sometimes become a little bit institutionalized. And we all end up falling into the trap of talking in acronyms that only people that work within that organization or that sector would have any understanding of. And actually sometimes having that, all of that opportunities where when I start looking for a mentor, I'm thinking about, okay, so what does this person look like? Who is it that I'm looking for? What is it that they can bring to the table that I haven't already got? And certainly from my own personal point of view, that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a mentor. Dean, anything you'd like to add to that as well?
Yeah, I also sometimes think it's about matching the type of person they are, their skills and their strengths, and the way they approach things about, how you are or how you aspire to be. Sometimes language or demographics can get in the way of this. So it's really important for you to, match yourself correctly. When it's not just about the knowledge that they have, it's also about how they can go about it and how they can actually bring things to life for you.
Yeah, and there is a whole credibility piece about it as well. It's about
Yes.
making sure that it is somebody that you're choosing that actually has that credibility. They're not just sort of going to say things because they know you want them to say it, and you need to have somebody that will be able to have that frank discussions with you. And sometimes I've had mentors tell me that I'm doing something completely wrong, which obviously is a bit hard sometimes to take on the chin, but it really is important because you need to be able to have that opportunity and not feel threatened by somebody sort of saying, well, actually, are you sure you're doing it the right way?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because often when the challenge comes, it might be a completely different challenge to how you've ever had it.
Yeah.
And the important thing is then to continue and to invest into it, not just to shy away and go, oh, that's a bit new. So yeah. Agree with that part completely.
Excellent. So when I'm getting started, what is it that I do? So for me personally, I've sat down and thought about what it is I want. I also then think about what I want that person to potentially be, look like, or provide, or bring to the table in effect. And then when I'm starting to then think about trying to find someone, it's about, sometimes I'll go around and speak to people and say, well, who do I know that has a mentor, and where did they get them from? And I remember the very first time I started thinking about getting a mentor, it was like, well, what do I do? Where do I find these people? And it is about do you want your mentor to be someone you know or who knows you? Because for some people, they may not want that. They may want somebody that's not part of their organization, doesn't know them, and that's how they feel most comfortable. The other thing I'm looking at when I'm getting started and when I'm thinking about approaching people is, again, making sure I'm clear in my head what I want them to bring, and why. And then starting to think about where I can find a mentor. My first option tends to, be sometimes within the organization, within networks that I'm already within. Sometimes you just get a feel for somebody. And like Dean said, sometimes you'll actually be finding that somebody's been passively mentoring you and you weren't aware of it. And then just by the very fact that you start potentially talking to them or working with them, or that relationship moves from that passive into active. So all of those are options that when I'm looking for a mentor is what I go out and I'm thinking about. And it's really about making sure you're doing that groundwork in order to make sure you find the right person. I think also we need to be mindful here is sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you do choose somebody you think will be a perfect mentor for you and it doesn't work. And actually you've got to be understanding it may not work for them as much as it may not work for you. So if somebody says to you, you know what, actually, I don't think I can be your mentor anymore. It's about not taking it personally, and that. But then likewise, if you find somebody that looks absolutely fabulous on paper, but then when it comes down to actually working with them and being with them, talking to them and that, you don't feel that you're getting that challenge that you were looking for, or they're not bringing that piece to help you develop that you were looking for. It's about being open and honest and saying, yep, the relationships come to the end really now. And that's where it is very much that more flexible relationship, unlike you would potentially find with a coaching or a sponsorship. So yeah, Dean, I'll just pop over to you. Is there anything you want to add to that one?
I think you've quite succinctly summed it up there. Just for me, it's just make sure that somebody that you choose is somebody that inspires you. And if you're asked the question, who would you like to be compared to in your career or your thinking, that's the kind of person that you'd stand next to, I suppose. Yeah.
And you may find it's somebody that you actually can meet face to face. Other times, you'll probably find that it will be somebody that you'll never actually meet. Quite often, you'll find that some mentors, I remember I had a conversation really recently with somebody, and they were saying that, well, the mentor that I've had, he's insisting that I do it through a video call or wants to see me face to face, but I'm not comfortable with that at the moment. And I'm like, that's fine, because you're the person that's in control here, and it moves at your space, at your pace, sorry. And actually, if I don't feel comfortable that I want to use a video call or that, and I just want to do a telephone call, or I want to just even do it through email, there's nothing wrong with that in the slightest, because you're still getting that communication happening. And I do say to people, you go at your own pace, and your mentor, if they are the right mentor for you, they will understand that, and they will be there for you when you need them, rather than be forcing you to see them on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock every single week type of thing. And that. So I suppose that's really, for me, is about the tips I use when I'm thinking about getting started. And hopefully that has helped, obviously, people on the call today to sort of help understand what it is as a mentor, when they're looking for a mentor, what they need to be looking at and thinking about and things like that. One of the things I did want to touch on is that for those people that don't feel comfortable, say, using somebody within their network, or they don't feel that they've got a network that's big enough to enable them to be able to choose somebody from there, or they don't want to actually do something, choose a mentor from within their organization because they want that opportunity to have complete sort of, but not being able to have somebody that's separate from their organization and that. CMI does actually have its own mentoring program, and it is an online service, so there is that opportunity. It can be matched according to skills and experience or sector. Again, it's very much the people that are on there and have offered their services as a mentor have been checked, but they do have to let you know what they're offering, their skills, their experience, and that way then you can match those. It does also help to provide that practical support to managers at all levels. So especially if you're studying for a management and leadership qualification or apprenticeship, the chances are they may have some of that expertise that you're looking for, and that guidance that they can give. They are able to focus on that improvement of your management and leadership skills, because that's one of the key areas again for it, and the opportunity to share skills and expertise. Everyone that's listening on to the webinar today, as part of our follow-up, what we will do is make sure that there will be a link to that service for you. It is offered, as I said, to members, and is open to all members within CMI. And I actually have also done this myself. I've actually gone to look on there and thought, well, what can I go to? What can I find in there? And I found a mentor on there recently that actually has a similar background to me, but is at a more senior level. And there was something about what they were offering that I thought, actually, that's something I've not actually heard about or used. And it's also going to give me an opportunity to look at leadership and management from not CMI only, but from outside of CMI. So that's the reason why I actually signed up as a mentee within this program as well. So that's really what I wanted to cover on the CMI mentoring. So before I'm going to move to the questions and answers section now. And really, I was just going to say, Dean, have you got anything you want to sort of summarize before we move into some of the questions?
I would probably just say that, mentoring is, being a mentor and being a mentee is highly, highly rewarding. Yes. It really gives you so much different perspective and scope, and especially in the modern climates where we are, when we look at bias and and there's that many opinions that float around everywhere. It kind of gives you a grounding. It kind of allows you to, rationalize and think things through that maybe you wouldn't want to talk through with your line manager, because it's something that you want to get straight in your head first. So I really think that the whole process of mentoring is really, really invaluable.
And I think you'll find that a lot of people that start out as mentees do then become mentors, because they realize that actually, as a mentor, they're getting as much out of that relationship as mentees do. And I think you will find that it is almost like a natural progression, that people that are mentees almost become mentors because of that two-way relationship and the gaining of knowledge themselves.
I can add to that, because the first time I was asked to be a mentor for somebody, it gives you an enormous sense of pride and gratitude. You've actually got a chance to give something back.
Yeah.
And I think in the world the way we are, it's giving something back is always something that could really be looked at favourably.
Yeah, and I would agree. So I'm going to thinking about some of the questions and that have come through. So Danielle, is there any questions in particular you'd like us to cover?
Yes, I mean, we've had lots of questions come through, some of them before the webinar started and some of them as we've been going through live. So we've collated those. So the first question I've got is for Dean. So Dean, you mentioned you have a mentor in America. Do you encourage people to have multiple mentors, and should they cover different fields?
Well, this comes up a lot. It's one of the questions I'm often asked. It all depends on what it is you're looking to get from that mentor-mentee relationship. You might have lifelong ones, that come from friendship, or because it's a mentor. It is a relationship, and a relationship has to grow really organically. The way I work, I would say yes, do have different ones in different fields, because you don't know always which way your role or the work that you're doing is going to turn. And it's great to be able to have different soundboards and different opinions and views. So yeah, I'd say as many as you can get your hands on, basically.
And I would echo that, because I've had mentors that I got to know whilst I was in the UK. I have had mentors when I was fortunate to be overseas for a while, and just because I've come back to the UK hasn't meant that I've stopped talking to the people that are based overseas. And I do think there's a huge benefit in having that breadth. Because it then gives you that depth, and it's not then that blinkered view. You've got a much more sort of umbrella view around the area or the specialism or the field that you're working within. And I think sometimes it's really good if you can even go across different sectors or different specialisms, because again, you're not then looking at it just in one very narrow path. You're looking at it in that much broader way and a broader thinking. So I would definitely encourage people to take to have multiple mentors, and to but be very clear though what each of those is bringing to the table for me.
Thank you. I've got a question for both of you now. So Dean, if you want to answer this first, and then Kat, if you'd like to add. How can you encourage buy-in from senior leaders to engage in a mentorship scheme and assist junior or developing leaders?
I think this comes down to a couple of factors really. The first one being the culture of the organisation that you're in. So the question you need to be asking is there a recognition for development and investment of your staff inside your organisation? And if there is, it's about you then presenting to them the benefits of the mentorship program and the benefits, say, of reverse mentoring, because that's something that we'll come on to probably in the next webinar, can bring to the organisation. So mentoring the workplace is very, very popular, and it's a way to integrate new workers into the organisation as quick as you can. But it's more than just an onboarding tool and things like that. So, it encourages goal setting. It encourages a large percent of workers to say, and feedback's given us that, they actually tell us that, a large percent of workers do actually say that goal setting is important in their workplace. And for forward-thinking managers, mentoring provides the environment where professionals generate ideas and share knowledge and help build a successful company. So I think it's about identifying your culture, and then about, talking to the right people, your HR departments, your MD departments, and find out where you start from there.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's very much that as you progress within an organization and within most organizations, it's about you almost move into that role modeling area, and you become a role model for others. And a part of that role model and being that inspirational leader or inspirational manager is to be able to sort of give back. And mentoring is probably one of the quickest ways that you can give back and easiest ways to give back. I'd like to try and turn this slightly on the head. And I would say to, if you are actually in a junior or developing leader role, and you're in an organization that you're not sure that whether it has that mentoring culture, you might find by actually starting to say, ask somebody that you trust and that you've identified and think would be a good mentor for you. So to say to them, well, do you mind being my mentor? I know we don't actually have a specific culture within the organization, but I really do feel that you can help me. And then who knows, by that might actually start to trigger that people think, well, why has that person got on so well? Or what's going on there? And then sometimes just by you almost setting up that almost like informal organizational mentoring can then, encourage that organization to become much more formal in the way that they look at their mentoring program, and then to be able to broaden that out to more people within that organization. So I've actually sort of experienced that from both sides, where I've worked in an area where we had a formal mentoring program, which was brilliant because there was a group of people I could sort of pick and choose from. But then I've also done it the other way, where I wasn't in an organization that had that mentoring culture. But I then found somebody and I sort of said, oh, I really feel like you'd be a brilliant mentor for me. And then because I then started to work with that person, somebody else then started to work with that person, but then somebody else then came in. And then we actually managed to get that organization to start thinking about setting up a mentoring culture for themselves.
Great. And we've got one last question that we've got time for on today's webinar. A lot of queries have come through about time management and being time poor. So how do you combat time as a potential barrier to a mentoring culture? So if you've got individuals who feel they don't have time, how do you get those on side and how do you make time?
Kat, would you like to go first on this one?
Yeah, I suppose for me, so I won't lie, in my diary, if you look at my diary or my calendar on any given week, it's probably, quite time poor. But for me, this is something that's important to me. And professional development for me is something that is important, and I should take time out and to think about that. Although saying that, I have actually booked mentoring calls with people outside of my work hours. I'm very fortunate. I work in an organisation that offers flexible working. So if I want to take a couple of hours out once a month to catch up with a mentor, I can then pick that up some other time. But actually, because I'm in an organisation that encourages that continued personal and professional development, I can actually use my mentoring, those times I spend with my mentor, as part of my CPD. But it is, again, it's because I want it for me. And so therefore I tend to make time. And I think there is an element of that there. So Dean, obviously I know you're a busy person as well, but is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, there's two sides of the coin to it. There's your time and there's their time. So you can get the barrier from both ways. If you're the mentee and you're finding that the mentor's not got time to do it, or kind of puts you off and cancels kind of things, then I'd probably question whether that's the right mentor for you. Because at the start of any kind of mentoring agreement relationship, you need to set some kind of agreement about what it is you want, what the demands are going to be, how you're going to take the relationship forward. And if it's only becoming one side because of time pressures, then is the relationship working is probably the question that you need to ask. From the side of being a mentee, and if you take myself for my own diary, I mean, it's everywhere. My diary, I can be here one day, I can be out in a different part of the country another day. Things can get dropped into your diary quite easily. But I always kind of go back to the old Warren Buffett kind of thing. That was the one where it's about 80% and 20%, where it's if you invest in 80% time in developing the self, and then the 20% of the time that you then you're really active when you're doing things, and that's quite an extreme that high CEOs do. But For me personally, I try to take at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour every day, just to try and write, okay, what do I need to do? What can I read? Who can I speak to? Pick up the phone, have a chat to people about things I'm working on. So it comes down again to that kind of mentorship, sponsorship coach, where the mentorship is about you driving it. And if you want to get the most out of it, you will find time.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Thank you both for your input on this. I found it really useful personally. We are thinking, or we are collating a way of getting some more of the answers out to everybody that's joined this webinar. I know there's been lots of questions that have come through. There's been some excellent questions. So we're looking at that at the moment, as we've not been able to cover everybody's questions. I would like to say that we have a feedback form that's linked through in the description of YouTube on this webinar. We'd be really grateful if you could share your feedback on this. And we will send out a recording as well to everybody that's registered on the session, so you can rewatch this. So I would like to say again, thank you to Dean and Kat for joining, and thank you to you all for joining as well. We hope you found this webinar useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.